Humanitarian Awards for science, technology, aerospace, robotics. And this fundraiser was started by the Sierra Madre Rotary, and we are now helping out with them, joined with them to put this event on. And this year in February, there was the award ceremony, and so awards were given out to scientists who have made significant humanity in health and medical, knowledge sharing, environmental improvement, and disaster recovery areas. And so the plan is that we will do this again this year. There may not be an awards dinner. We may end up having this awards online, which could in a way expand the scope of it. But we are looking for anyone who would like to help out on this project. Anything from really all aspects of it. We need people to help do search for candidates for the awards, work on sponsorship, marketing, the event itself, especially if it's online. It's going to be something new and different. So I guess I'll have Russ put the contact information in the rotoscope, and if any of you are interested, please let me know. Denise, is there anything else?
No, I think you've covered it all. Right now, the most important thing is to start us making our connections with who we think should be honored. We'd love to find, with 15 million people in LA County, there are several who should be honored for their humanitarian support. And you look very pretty today. That's all.
No, thank you. Some time to help out, and if you have some ideas, just please let me know. If you don't have time to be part of the group, if you do have ideas or know people that you think would be good candidates for awards, or people who would like to sponsor this project and contribute to Rotary charities, let me know. Okay, that's it for me, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great job. It'd be interesting to see that event go online.
Yeah, I think it could be fun.
Yeah, people are getting used to it.
Well, and I mean, for this event especially, because they're all tech people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something they're quite used to.
Okay, good. And we've got Jim Folsom in here now. Hi, Jim.
Jim, I just made you a co-host. You are a co-host now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you got promoted.
Is that a kind of salmon co-host?
You're going to be able to share your screen, and I'm going to also spotlight you in a second. As soon as, Greg, we're ready to do that.
Yeah, we'll be done. Do we have any other announcements from committee chairs? Rob Filer, you got an announcement? You want to tell us anything about some good news yesterday?
I did have some good news yesterday.
Yes, please.
Personal note, thank you. Yeah, Brennan, my son, he had his third MRI yesterday, and everything came back clear. Blood work was clear, no sign of tumor. So it's a small miracle in itself. So thank you all for your continued prayers. Appreciate it.
That's the best news ever.
That's awesome, Rob.
Great.
Thank you.
And we had, yesterday I was watching the news midday with my daughter, and we noticed a lovely couple that we're all familiar with on the news, the Bosseries. You guys had ABC News over at your dry cleaners.
Thank you. Yes, we did. It was very exciting. That was nice of you to watch. And here's one of the owners now.
I don't live here.
Yeah, right. There's the dry cleaning heiress.
No.
Why don't you turn on a computer?
Okay. Yes, so thank you.
Ariana,
Thank
you have
you
a
very
few quick
much.
jokes for us?
Ariana?
Oh, great.
Come here.
Yeah, we need a couple jokes. Yeah, you do.
I don't have any jokes prepared for Rotary, but have you noticed Charles' beard? Okay, cool.
No.
Come here with your beard, Teddy.
Okay.
Look at that.
So yes,
guys.
we're very grateful, and thank you all for watching the news. That was very sweet of you.
Yeah, that was cool. You
They
guys are
all
doing great.
lost.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I don't think we've got Chief Rueda or Contra on. So we'll get an update from them next week. And I'm going to turn it over now to Jim Folsom. Let's unmute you first, Jim.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Hi, Jim.
Let me just I was thinking I was at 12:40, but I'm ready.
Are you ready? You can do whatever.
I'm ready. I'm just
All
gonna,
right.
let me do this one. I gotta just, I have got to just save this. Well, I just gotta bring it up to, what do you call it? Slideshow. Okay. So, unmute myself. Okay. Do you see it already, or do I have to? I have to grab the screen. Let's see.
We see you. You're spotlighted.
Share the screen.
There you go.
Okay, I want to share that screen. Okay. Now, does it say the secret garden?
Sure does.
Okay, it feels that way. It sort of feels like we have this garden and you don't know how to get in, and there's somewhere this this gateway, and so I'm going to take you into the gateway. It's a little bit larger than the one in the movie, but so for the last few weeks we've had a secret garden guarded by a guard in a field of roses. That rose was in full bloom. That picture was taken on Cinco de Mayo, and that rose is called Cinco de Mayo. And the reason I just want to mention it is because we have an incredible rose curator at the Huntington, Tom Caruth, who spent decades as a significant hybridizer introducing roses. I'll show you several that have won awards around the world and are roses that are among the most popular in the world. One of the roses he introduced that was awarded just a few years ago is Cinco de Mayo. There's a lot of stuff that's been blooming. I don't know if you guys grow this or have it. It's not common around town. This is Chinaberry, and it's a tree related to mahogany, but it has a very, nobody really uses the wood, but it has these big, almost fluffy panicles of purple and white flowers and a nice smell. It's an interesting tree. You see it around town, but it's we were just planting some in the Chinese garden, so I was just pointing that up. We planted the EVC. You guys came for, I think, tours 5 years ago. Rotary did, when we opened the EVC, and in that landscape up front, we planted all these agaves. Well, we bought them at a nursery, of course, and they were all the same size, so they're all blooming and dying at the same time. So we have this wonderful kind of almost a fireworks display of agaves up front. Like 12 of them have decided to bloom. And you might not have looked at the flowers, but the flowers on agaves look like a little lily flower, but great big huge stamens. So we're going to walk around the garden. Desert garden has been looking fabulous. A little bit weedy because we got that late rain, and I don't know about you guys, but we have had a bumper crop of weeds from that late rain. But this euphorbia has been in full bloom. It opens white, and in the evening it turns pink. It's a really nice plant. And more agaves. This agave just, some agaves, when they flower, they die. Others we're lucky and they pup. So we've got a major program in the garden of tissue culture, and we go, the ones that are important to us that we're afraid we'll lose, we have to go in and tissue culture them to keep them going, because otherwise you have to start all over with seed. Agave, this is aloe Goldilocks, but look in the foreground. In sunny days, these ice plants are just glorious, and they sulk. On a shady day, they don't even open, but on a sunny day, they open up full. And they seed around the garden. So this year, we were admiring this pretty pink mound. And this is one that was just a seedling that came up in the garden. And certainly one that probably, if it performs this well year after year, we'll propagate it and just introduce it, because nature gave us a nice form here. Beautiful. A lot of fun things blooming as we move into the warm season. A lot of cacti bloom this time of the year. Cacti do funny things, and one of the things they do is that's one flower, of course, and these are its petals. They make hundreds of stamens, and this is the style and stigma, and it's kind of got it looks like a green octopus sticking out of there. Going over to the Australian garden, we've had some really beautiful flowering down there. There's a shrub that I wish people grew more commonly. They don't. It's a small tree called Cassia brewsteri. It's pretty at every stage. The buds are pretty with this lovely dark pink and then the kind of that almost chartreuse calyx. But then they make these huge pendant inflorescences of these big kind of medallion-like flowers. And there are two different ones. There's this one, Cassia brewsteri, and then there's this one that's just coming into bloom now that's more yellow, Cassia tomentello. It has a flower that looks like that. But those inflorescences are like wisteria. They hang down 1 foot to 1.5 feet. Just a big shrubby tree, really nice. Not available. No one ever grows it, but people like us. Speaking of trees, so I'm just pointing out a tree. So that tree is an American tree. It's a Native American tree called Virginia oak. If you've ever been to the Southeast, that's the tree that you see along the coast with the huge branches that kind of levitate off the ground. That one, I was just thinking about it the other day. So there was another tree there. When I came here, there was a native oak called Quercus engelmannii, and it was at least 200 years old. And we have furniture in the Botanical Center we made when it fell, but it fell during a rainstorm. And it was a brazen tree. It fell and it broke the main water line, and we had to close the entire Huntington until we could get the water line back in place. And it was pouring rain, and it was a holy mess. And we came back and planted another engelmannii in there, and it passed. It did not survive. It perished. So then we planted this, and when I planted it in about 1996, the trunk was probably 4 inches in diameter. It was just a 4-foot box. We put it exactly where that, and today it's already, so that's just 24 years ago, and today it's got a trunk that's almost 2 feet in diameter, and it's turning into a handsome big tree. It's just kind of interesting I say I planted it. When I say I planted it, it means I decided we were going to plant that, and then I called the nursery and I ordered it, and they delivered it, and then a team of gardeners planted it, and I sat back and took credit for planting it. Another crazy tree that's doing its thing this time of the year, you see it around town. We think of it as fall color. It blooms beautifully pink and white in the fall, Corycia. But this time of the year, it makes these hand grenade looking pods. And when they open and make this cottony, we call it kapok, make this cottony hairs, and they break apart, and each little tuft carries a seed. So in nature, this is how this tree distributes itself. And it's almost interesting that there's no public here, because when it happens, it covers parts of the garden with what looks like somebody blew up a mattress, and people complain. They say, why did you let that happen? Or what is that all about? And we just think it's kind of amusing. So gardeners have different ways of getting their jollies. But the Corycia is sending its seed. Each of these little tufts is about 1.5 inches, and that little dark spot in the middle is the seed. So each tuft lofts a seed, and they can go quite a distance. Pretty neat. So I want to just take you over by the Hug. That's the Huntington Art Gallery, we call it. And we've been rebuilding that landscape for the past several years. We inherited a collection of cycads from one of the world's most prominent cycad authorities, Lauren Whitelock. His place was in Eagle Rock, and so we inherited these cycads. We moved 600 plants about that size to the Huntington, plus another couple of thousand smaller plants from his 2-acre garden. And today it lines the slope going down from the art gallery. You're seeing the jacarandas in bloom. This just was taken the last 2 or 3 days. But it has completely rebuilt that landscape. And we built a rockery. These are stones from Palos Verdes. And so there's the difference. So you're looking at a picture at the top the Huntington Gallery, gosh, at least 20 years ago. And this is the gallery below today with the new rockery and all the plantings. So we've completely altered quietly that whole landscape around the art gallery. It's botanically, it's a lot more exciting. You'll have to decide on your own about the merits of aesthetics. But it was all done in the name of getting rid of lawn. So we have had a fabulous, fabulous bloom of the rose. And you're seeing a picture of the rose garden here, the flower in the foreground. And in this next picture is the one that Tom hybridized. It's the last rose of his whole career that's been introduced to the public. And the Huntington acquired the naming rights, and we've named this Huntington 100th. So this is the centennial rose for the Huntington. These plants went in the ground before the name was given. So these are about 4 years old, and they really put on a show this year. They open this yellow, and then they blush pink as they mature and get larger, and they're incredibly fragrant. So it's an interesting rose. But the rose garden's been beautiful. The lawns are green. They're not trampled by the public, but we miss the public because it seems so strange to look out into the garden and see no one walking through. One of the beds in the garden, all of these roses have an association with the Huntington. Either we introduced them or they were introduced and named for us. That's Tom's Good as Gold, named by one of the staff members. But the arbors, we've repaired all the arbors. These were original to Mr. Huntington, and they were made out of plumbing fixtures. If you go look at them, you'll see that there are clean out valves and all sorts of pipes they put together. So when we restored them, we actually had castings made of all of those plumbing fixtures and put them back. And we didn't try to come to something more refined or elegant. We just decided we would stick with the original fabric. And we think it's kind of funky. Beautiful roses, a recent rose called Soul Desire. We've built our fellow Terry Egan, who's been building the faux bois, built us 2 faux bois stumps, and we've planted roses in those stumps, and that's kind of a nice effect. And over the last few years, we completely replaced and restored all the trellis work in the garden. It's just exactly as it was originally, except originally that was all wood. Today, the crossbars are wooden, but all of the stronger uprights and all those other bars are aluminum. We had extruded to precisely match the shape and the size of the wood, but so we wouldn't have to replace them again in 20 or 40 years. Kind of like the pergola in Lacey Park that has to be replaced every 20, 30 years. We just decided we're going to get away from that, and we'll replace it every 100. So here it is again. All of that's been replaced. And now we've retrained the roses, and we've got one gardener who specializes in training the roses on top of the pergolas, and give them another 4 or 5 years and that will be unbelievable. So in 4 or 5 years, each of these will be a complete blanket of flowers on top. That picture again, it's just some roses, some cultivars. This is one called America. This is one of Tom's introduction. He named roses for all of the holidays. So 4th of July, Cinco de Mayo, and this is his Memorial Day. And of course, Memorial Day is this coming weekend. This is an unbelievable rose. It is among garden roses. It's actually a good one for cut flower, which is kind of unusual for garden roses. When you go to the market and buy cut flower roses, those roses are not roses grown in gardens. Those are hybridized and selected just for cut flower. Some really funky forms that have come out in the last few years, starry eyes. This is Tom's rose too, Betty Boop. It's a great big rose, about 5 inches across, very cheerful, a lovely, kind of fitting for the name Betty Boop. And here's one that a famous Rotarian in England, David Austin, named for the Huntington on the 100th anniversary of the Rose Garden that was introduced, Huntington Rose. If you go over to the Shakespeare Garden, these have all been deadheaded. Now, this was just 2 weeks ago, but we've replanted all of this. The foxgloves have been beautiful. It briefly, until we had that hot spell, looked like you were in England, perhaps, but 2 months early. So that's been fun. Go over to the herb garden. The herb garden looks wonderful right now. This is yet one more of Tom's roses, Julia Child. Tom named and introduced Julia Child, the rose. It's a beautiful kind of a mellow butter yellow that they had not selected a name. It was growing as a test rose in a garden, and Julia Child was visiting the garden, and she looked at the rose and she said, if there were going to be a rose named after me, it would have to look like that. And so the person whose garden it was called Tom and said, guess what? Julia Child wants you to name your rose after her. And so it is, she actually picked the rose herself, and Tom's company and Tom named the rose Julia Child. Now you need to know that rose names are really important. They are part of the commerce of the rose. So there is a peculiarity. This rose will have 5 different names. It will have a different name in Australia, and it'll have a different name in South Africa and a different name in Europe, so that every rose has one formal name, which is just a bunch of numbers and letters. And then it has trademark names, or cultivar names we call them, but those are chosen and they have to be registered internationally, and they are chosen literally to support the sales and value of the rose. That's why if you wanted the rose named after you or somebody in your family, and you found a good rose, a hybrid that was to be introduced, you would pay $10,000 for the privilege, because when they name that rose after you, since your name may not sell that rose in New York City, they lose a lot of potential sales, so they get their money up front. Heading over to the Asian gardens, the Paulownias have been in full bloom. This is a tree, it's a weedy tree in the East, a native tree to China and Japan, and they used it to make those beautiful fine boxes, Paulownia wood. It's got these pretty purple, it's related to jacaranda, which is not surprising when you look at the flowers. So this has been in full bloom, and the Japanese garden is green. We are fighting the weeds there with the rain, but I wanted to show you something that's in your gardens that I think is kind of interesting. And I go out and take a lot of pictures in the gardens, and I constantly am surprised about what I run into. It's kind of a funny thing, because there's so many kinds of plants in the world, you just can't know it all, or maybe some people do, I certainly don't. But I was out in the garden last week and looking at Nandina. This is a plant native to China. We've got it in many places in the garden, and you probably have it in your garden at home. Nandina domestica. I go back into so it makes berries, but while if the berries didn't get taken by the birds, then they hang on while the new flowers come out. These will be berries next year. But the flowers are these strange buds. And what happens to the flowers of Nandina is the petals open and then the petals fall off, and all you have left is the bare essentials of a flower, the male part, which is the anther, and the female part, which is the style and stigma. So there's one last petal about to fall off. So the Nandina flowers, the show is the buds, and as the buds open, the flower petals fall off. It's just kind of a funky, interesting thing. We actually have peonies in the Chinese garden, and this is the last of the peonies. They've put on not a lot, they don't grow well here, but ours are doing pretty well. And this one was just in bloom the other day, putting on a nice show. Peonies are incredible flowers for gardeners. If you live in the Midwest, you almost live for the time when the peonies and the lilacs come into bloom. So we're in the Chinese garden now, and the Chinese garden is underway. The contractors are pretty much finished with their work, and my staff, this is David McLaren, who's on the garden staff and driving our boom lift, and we have been doing the big work of installing the garden. So let me show you some things. So like the reason I took the Nandinas was these weren't here 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden we dug these up around the property and put them in to kind of soften that edge around the rockery there. This building existed. We built that building in 2014, but this whole patio now has been paved with the decorative rock. I think some of you saw that. We're planting. Here's a crepe myrtle coming into place. It got planted up by the Panjing court right there. We brought all the soil into the Panjing court. We're putting in the trees, and we'll be putting in the smaller plants soon. These are placeholders for where we may or may not put stands for display of bonsai or Chinese panjing. But we brought in the pines. This, just a month ago, there was no soil here. In fact, these looked like swimming pools of the future. They were all deep caverns, but we've put in the drainage, the pipes, and now all the soil. Started to plant the trees. The Chinese crews built, the American crews built the walls. The Chinese crews added all these components, the tile, the roofs, and built all the rockeries and assembled and erected all of the rocks working with American crews. And now we're bringing in the trees. There's a screwy willow, they call it. Here's a ginkgo going into place. This is the biggest tree we planted. This is a Rotarian, not one of those shrubby kinds like we buy in nurseries. This is grown by a specialty nursery in Simi Valley called Barrelwood. And they planted this seed about 25 years ago. And this tree is about 60 feet tall, and it never got topped. So it has the more natural form of the Rotarian. I got it on sale. So if you wonder how much a tree that big costs, that's a huge box. It takes a huge crane to get it in place. The tree is 60 feet tall, and that's a $22,000 tree. That's on sale. It would have been $30,000, but they've been sitting on it for a while, and they just wanted to see it go to a good home. Here it goes in place. We are planting that tree this week. This pine right here, we moved. It was on the site, but it was in the way of a building, so we dug it up and moved it, and we've just put it back in place. And here we're taking off the sides of the boxes and getting the trees planted. And we're mounding up and changing the whole conformation of the land. So all of that's going into place. Irrigation, of course, the whole garden, the irrigation and the soil are practically finished. We're doing the final planting right now. Some of the staff, Seth is our garden's designer. We're all, of course, now have new protocols, working certain distance from each other, not traveling together in vehicles, not using the same hand tools, wearing face coverings at all times in the garden, some more elaborate than others. That's Paul. So we're adapting to the circumstances, and now it's starting to look like this. So there are going to be some spectacular views when the Chinese garden, when we are able to open to the public. Hopefully we'll just be able to bring the Chinese garden right online as a soft opening so people can enjoy this huge new landscape. Take you over to the nursery for a few minutes and just show you that we weren't able to attend the Santa Barbara Orchid Show, which would have been at the end of March, but the orchids bloomed anyway. They just did not decide to shut down. We've had some incredible orchids blooming. This is an award-winning orchid named after Robert Welts from the collection that we inherited and partly purchased, the Welts collection. Some little miniature orchids that aren't so miniature, Pleurophthalus gargantua. Normally Pleurophthalus flowers are about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch from top to bottom. This one's more like 1.5 inches. So it may not be big by your standards, but by Pleurophthalus standards, this is not just Pleurophthalus gargantua, but dubbed Huntington's giant. Some just drop dead beautiful orchids, Trichopilia suavis, and these have meaning to me because I used to live in Panama and Colombia, and I collected studied orchids there, and I've walked through forests and just looked up right at head height and just seen orchids like this in full flower, and no matter how many times that happens, it's always a remarkable gift. It's just an astonishing thing to see a plant like this just blooming out in nature, but they are truly astonishing even in a cultivated form in the greenhouse. Some other funny orchids. That is, by the way, vanilla. That's what the vanilla flower looks like. So people who grow vanilla grow this viney orchid plant. That's the vine back here. And every day they go out and they take the pollen and push it into the stigma behind so that they can get a fruit. And so the vanilla bean, you call it, is the fruit of this orchid flower that's been sweated, fermented, and dried and treated. And during that process, the flavor of the vanilla develops. we've been busy all around the garden still. We've completely re-landscaped the area around Mr. Huntington's mausoleum. This bench used to be down on the road. This used to all be asphalt. We've come in and we've cut out a lot of the asphalt to increase the size of the green space. We got rid of the entire lawn around the mausoleum. There's still a lawn on the circle, but this larger space, we got rid of the entire lawn. We're planting that in a shrubbery to help protect access. We'll be putting in some more trees here and making this a quieter, greener landscape. So this work we just finished about a week ago. Here you go, looking at that. So the road used to go there. This was this massive asphalt apron, and I don't know why they made it or why we needed it. And so we took it out. I have not gotten you up to see the potager yet. The potager, the opening of this, the dedication of this structure, the horticultural pavilion, happened on the 28th of February. So this is just about the last reasonable sized public event that the gardens held before everything got shut down. And that is a complementary structure to a vegetable garden, the potager, which we're planting. By the time, hopefully when we open, it'll be a beautiful vegetable garden. It's a pretty good sized garden. And then we also have a second vegetable garden, which you may not have seen. This is the ranch. This is an experimental garden where we try different techniques, showcasing different techniques. You're seeing here a drip irrigation that we lay on top of our beds to control that, to control water use. Vegetables are big users of water, pretty heavy. So, but you get something out of it, right? This is corn. Some of the crops. One of the goals of our Botanical Center is to grow all of the world's 200 different kinds of food plants so that we can talk about the importance of plants as a food source, nutrition, and how to grow them. So here's some blueberries. These are loquats. This is mulberry. I don't know if you've ever grown mulberry. It's not a beautiful fruit, but it's tasty enough. This is the white form of it. And then there's a kind of a purple-black form. These get like 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, and they're not the most attractive thing, but they taste good. So the mulberries have been in bloom. Some other things, gold-kissed apricots, Maypide Pride peach, Gala. You can grow small apples here. Gala, Dorset Gold, both do well here. And then, of course, the blueberries. The last flowers I want to show you are just kind of interesting. So the last few weeks have been full of poppies, so that we have poppies. This is the European poppy, and this is the Mexican poppy, Hunamania fumarifolia. That's been in bloom. It's a shrub. This is our native California poppy. Of course, the Schultzia, they call it. And this is another native, and this is a great plant for if you've got a place that you don't ever want to have to deal with again, and you can have a plant take it over in full sun. This is the plant to get. This is Romnea, Matilaha poppy. And the flowers are huge. They're like 5 inches across, and it comes back reliably year after year after year. It runs as bad as bamboo, but it is worth having. So if you've got a slope or an area that you just don't want to ever have to fuss with again, just plant yourself some Romnea there. You'll be happy. The last slide, just to point out, every time I see these red poppies, I grew up in a time when there was Poppy Day. I guess that was in November, right? And the World War I Memorial Day. And it was this red poppy that they made into little paper poppies, and you made a contribution and wore a poppy during that day. And of course, that all started with this poem by John McCree in Flanders Field. And so it's these poppies, this red European poppy, Papaver, that populated and filled in among the crosses there in Flanders Field, where so many lives were lost. So this is the kind of things that happen as I walk through the garden, and the things we see and the things we talk about. And we've been pretty busy, even though the world seems to have gone quiet. We miss you guys. Okay. I will then give you a screen back. Stop share. I found if I don't give it back to you, you can't do anything. Okay. Well, thanks for letting me take you on a tour.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks
Thank you. I think maybe Greg is tied up right now, but I just wanted to make 2 comments. One, I wanted to thank you for being flexible, being flexible and providing us a program on short notice. And, you could always, it's not only interesting content, but you're passionate for your work, and that really comes out. And so thank you so much. And thank you to Greg for coming up with this program. And then my second comment is I wanted everyone to know, Jim didn't want a formal introduction today, but we wanted to make sure that everybody knew that he is the winner of the Liberty Hyde Bailey Award by the American Horticultural Society. And this is the highest award and is given to an individual who has made significant lifetime contributions to at least 3 of the following horticultural fields: teaching, research, communications, plant exploration, administration, art, business, and leadership. So congratulations, Jim.
Well, thank you very much. It would be, of course, it would be me that broke the system, because they can't have an award ceremony. And there's the good thing is there's no black tie. I get to record a 1.5 minute statement and send it over the airwaves. I don't have to go to Virginia. I don't have to go to any parties. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Congrats.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Jim. That was incredibly interesting. I'm sure you only scratched the surface, but it's always amazing when we hear you speak, just how in depth everything is, and the knowledge you've got about everything going on there is pretty fascinating.
If I don't know it, I make it up.
Fine. I'm fooled then.
When do you open?
I'm convinced. Yeah, let's open up for questions.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah, I'll be glad to answer.
When do you open the garden?
We can't even. We're disallowed still. We don't qualify yet, but we have a full task force that for 2 weeks, 3 weeks now has been putting together all of the protocols and rules for opening. I'm hoping you've got a trustee right here in the middle of the screen, Andy. I can't say much, but I'm hoping that we get to open beginning in June sometime to members, and certainly we want to be open before the summer. The trick is, of course, we know we can open the garden in a different way from opening the galleries, so it's going to have to be staged. And I hope we don't disappoint our members and visitors any longer, and we can open as soon as possible. I'm keeping the gardens ready. I got my work cut out for me.
Yeah. I think Jim said it well. We're looking and we're trying, and we're going to say, I mean, whatever happens, it'll happen in a staged manner. I'll just take a second. As long as I got the mic, I have the mic. I will take a second though to just really embarrass Jim. Jim is a treasure. Jim is at the top of his field. He is the very best at what he does, easily in the United States, maybe in the world. And we are lucky. We're lucky to have him. We're lucky to have had him so long. And I see Jim blushing more and more. So I'm going to stop. But
I would say that being the right person is one thing. Being in the right place is even more important. And being at the Huntington in this community with so many people supporting the gardens and supporting what we try to do, I could have sat down and done nothing in my life except for the contributions, the interest, the dedication, and the work of hundreds and thousands of other people. So I could have been somewhere else and been happy, but I'm joyous here.
We're glad you're here. So
that's wonderful. Jim, I apologize. I came late to your presentation, but are your volunteers still active, or have you?
Oh yeah, we have started with a lot of discussion and permissions and signing off of your second born. We started allowing working volunteers to come back. So the Rose deadheaders are back under very careful circumstances, because like me, many of our volunteers are I want to write a country song, and the title, the main refrain is going to be "Overweight and Over 60," which is the danger of
Sounds like it's about Rotary.
Yeah. So practically everybody that volunteers here would qualify for some kind of. I can go get a COVID test without having to have any symptoms. Okay, so it's great they are willing to come back, but we are making sure that we can ask them to come back as safely as possible. The Rose volunteers are back, the bonsai volunteers are back, the desert garden volunteers came back today. The herb garden volunteers are back. So little by little, we're regaining our volunteers, and quite honestly, this garden couldn't run without them. There's so much work it takes to keep this garden going, and volunteers are crucial. So hopefully we can continue that. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go. What you're saying?
Have you guys had to sacrifice any portion of the gardens, or sort of let some things go, or?
That is something that's always there as a concern. It is bizarre when you think about it, that here I'm opening up another 5 acres of garden. We've just received the last components of a Japanese house. The new roof arrived this week. So in the middle of what is a decided bummer of a time, we're still behaving as though the world will not come to an end, and there's brighter days ahead. So we're still here.
Okay. Sure, we've got more questions. Anyone can just unmute yourself. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, Jim, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, man, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Over the years, I've come to the garden when you had the Eagle Scout presentations, and that's one of the highlights of my time when you have your Eagle Scouts there doing their projects.
Yeah, we just got 2 finished right before this current calamity. So I was in, and we'll get back to that. It'll come back. I've done probably, I'm not sponsored, but overseen probably as many as 30 Eagle Scout projects over the last few years, and 5 in the last year. So we get a lot of value, and I think it's really important to the community. We also do Girl Scout gold medal projects, and I think it's really important for kids to learn how to work with the world and the earth, but also how to contribute to their communities.
Right.
And those projects are important for that.
Jim,
yeah.
I got a question about job creation.
Uh-huh.
I love the dirt as much as you do. And what kind of jobs are available, or what kind of career paths would you recommend that I help my students move toward? What do they need to know so that they can get jobs?
So some of first off, if you notice, curiously enough and wonderfully enough, landscaping and construction were never excluded. They were considered essential. So there was some comfort there, whatever essential means. When I talk to young people who are interested in using their hands and their brains together, and maybe interested in a career working outside, there are some really good fields. A good one is urban forestry, arbor work. That's good because the world is still going to become more urban, and we still need those forests. That's technical work. It requires a lot of knowledge, but it's really good. There are, I think, urban farming and agriculture are changing radically in the way they function, but people still have to eat, and crops still have to be grown. So there's a lot of fields that are, I call them applied botany, besides just pure research botany. We are losing all of our expertise worldwide in specialty crops because the system the US government put together historically the world's greatest system for agriculture and agricultural research. And over the last, not just in the last 3 years, but over the last 20 years, we have just been dismantling that system and giving up. And yet at the same time, almost all of our crops are in peril. There there's going to be a lost generation of people who know all about specialty crops, hybridizing and introducing avocados, working with corn, working with rice. Those had historically been highly technical, but passed down from large groups of experts, one to another, as well as all the written information. We're going to be missing an entire generation of people. There's going to be a huge amount of lost knowledge related to the very things that we depend on for our survival, which is our food crops. I would certainly encourage young people to look at that, because the world is going to wake up one of these days and realize we don't have the people who know how to grow these crops. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of technical expertise there. There are some things that are not going to go away, and feeding people is not going to go away.
Great question, Denise. Hey, Tony Johansson, do you have any questions here for Jim?
Yeah, Jim, I was curious, when were those pictures of the rose garden taken?
In the last, well, you know what's funny is, of course, we're deadheading right now. Those were taken over the last 2 to 3 weeks, but then we had that hot flush right in the middle of it. We had that remember those couple of hot days? So
right.
So we're deadheading. So hopefully we'll have a new crop of flowers just about the time we're able to open.
Great.
And it's good to get all the volunteers back, because we have probably 30 volunteers that regularly work in the rose garden. All of the annual pruning, all the deadheading is volunteer work. And we were facing a disaster without them. So it's nice to get them back.
Okay.
Jim, it's Barbara Bice. I just want to thank you for this presentation, which Gilda just told me is going to be made available. So those people who didn't see it today, and our friends who we can share it with. So thank you so much. This was just great. Appreciate it so much. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with other people.
Okay. Well, I'm going to shut up and let you guys, you got other meeting stuff to take care of. I'll mute myself. Okay.
I don't think I do. As far as last week's video, guys, I wasn't able to send it. Fong's helping me figure that out, so we'll send it out to you. Jim, thank you very much for your presentation. We've been looking forward to it.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Well, you guys take care.
We can't wait to get back there.
In the near future. Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Anything else anybody want to add? Do we have any more updates or announcements? JP, you're having an international meeting tonight?
Yes, that's right. We have
okay.
a national committee meeting and 5:30, and I send the Zoom invite to everybody.
Okay, and if someone who's not on the committee wants to attend, is that okay?
Sure. Yeah. Shoot me
email you and get a password?
Absolutely. I CC'd you on the invite, Greg. And
okay.
Anybody can shoot me an email, and I'll send the Zoom invite.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Aaron?
President?
Yeah.
Mike, Aaron, and Gilda.
I just wanted to remind the members of San Marino Rotary Charities Board that we have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday at 1:30. I'll send out a Zoom meeting announcement for you all to participate, along with an agenda, and we'll look forward to talking with you then.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Go ahead, Gilda.
Just wanted to update everybody that the scholarship committee is meeting today. We have 8 applicants that we're going to review, and we will be selecting a handful to interview. So hopefully by next week, we'll have a report for charities. We'll see.
Great.
My goal.
And I just wanted to wish Greg and his wife, Anna, a happy anniversary. Today is your anniversary, correct?
It is. Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
9 years, and she ditched me. She's not around today. The last thing she wants to do is be packing up her classroom, but she'll be home soon. Yeah, Jen, it's funny you shared the picture of the peony. That was the main flower at our wedding, and her favorite. My mom actually dropped some off yesterday to wish us a happy anniversary.
I should send you a
Oh, you're muted.
I think he's muted.
Sounded good.
Yeah.
I can't hear you, Jim.
I'm trying to unmute him, but it's not.
I said I should send you a picture. I've got a picture of a tree peony with a flower about 12 inches across that has a champagne flute for a scale that would be appropriate for your
I'll take it. I can make a card out of it.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. Very good. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. If there's nothing else, then I will call this meeting adjourned. We're going to have a board meeting, club board meeting, probably Wednesday evening before our next meeting. Lily, do you want to say hi? Hi. Lily says hello, everybody.
Hi, Lily.
All right.
Hi, Lily.
So Greg, you'll send us an
Come back, Lily.
It's not about Lily. It's
Come say hi. Yeah, I'll send an email today, Mike.
All right, thanks.
Hi, Lily.
Here's your grandma.
Hi,
right,
pretty
guys.
girl.
I love you.
I love you too, sweetheart. I miss you.
I miss you too.
All right, Mom, let's not get all sappy here.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. All right. See you guys. Thank you very much. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
next week.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jim. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.